Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. It is the blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in and shining again, and asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than I am. Listen, I made a mistake 10 months ago. I recorded, and the title was How Black Consciousness and Colorism Led Me to the Ibmore Red Pill. I was operating under the assumption that the most commonly discussed division amongst us now, which is colorism, was subconscious, and mostly subconscious and a little bit conscious. That was a mistake. It was more conscious back then as I was growing up than I was aware, and it was maybe more subconscious when my dad was growing up than it was conscious. But by the time I came up, it was a good bit of both. And now with this generation that's coming up at this point, our kids and these young adults, it is more conscious. They're aware of it. Whether they believe the stereotypes or not, they are aware of them. They can consciously articulate them, and they have got their own opinions about them because they're aware that these things exist. So this means in our discussions that we had, that we kicked up in the 90s, then 2000s and 2010, were not very effective when it comes to our offspring, when it comes to the youth, because they heard the discussions, but they didn't actually get certain facts and information. And really, most of them are smart enough to not just buy into stereotypes. The issue was that the dumbest, the saying, the empty vessel makes the most noise. The dumbest of them have had the most to say, and they've been the loudest, and they've been the most heard. And it's much like anything that's good versus its completely bad opposite. The best husband makes one wife happy, or if it's legal, 4, 2 or 3. The best wife makes one husband happy. The worst husband or the worst man is going to make a bunch of women miserable, and the worst woman in the world is going to make a bunch of men miserable. It is a similar thing here. The smartest are going to have a good influence on those around them, but the dumbest are going to go from one to the next. Honest people may benefit a few folks, but the scam artists get to harm many people. They go from victim to victim. It's the same thing here. The dumbest have the most effect, or the effect on the most people, even though they're a minority themselves. So we all have experiences with the dumbest of us, but we don't all benefit from the most wise of us. Nonetheless, that's led to a problem. Now it's conscious. That means they're aware of all of it, but they're not necessarily squashing it. We're going to have to set the example and then tell the young ones. We're going to have to shout down these dummies. We're going to have to tell people, look, some of them are just stupid. And we're going to have to be able to privately, when we're talking to our family members, call some of them out by name and say, okay, look, I know so-and-so, he may have done this for you. She may have done this for you. That's good. But understand they're not too bright, and they believe dumb stuff. So you can be nice to them in exchange. You just can't listen to what they say and follow them. That you can't do. They ain't smart enough. We're just going to have to let folks know. You see, we got to tell our kids to not only not follow everybody else, because that's not the thing to do. We have to tell people can't follow everybody else because most of them ain't going to be smart enough to lead you. Smart ones won't know your situation well enough to lead you because it's not their situation. No harm, no foul. They just can't, and you can't lead them per se. But many, they're going to be a minority of them that they are too stupid to lead you. And they're going to be the ones that are the most insistent that they should. Watch out for them. Because right now, for this thing to be so conscious, and yet for us who are not the dumbest of the dumb to have these arguments that we're having, means that we haven't discussed it effectively. I'm glad we did. We need to do so. We need to try. We're learning, but we do have to keep learning. And one of the things we got to learn now is that apparently the discussion was not that effective, because now these youth know about this. They know, and yet and still they're getting arguments about everything. I mean, let's take a non-black man's and light-skinned motivations channel. That's not two different people, by the way. That's one, and that's how you spell it. A non-black man, ampersand, the and symbol, and light-skinned, one word, motivation. Take that channel, for instance. When they put up videos, they're not saying that all of these attacks and crimes against lighter skinned people are because they're lighter skinned. They're not saying that that's the reason for it in every case. What they're saying is that this is proof that there is no light skin privilege. Or if there is, it is so vastly offset by the cost of it that the net effect is still not a privilege. And I've been saying that. I've said this before. Now, I have had to deal with violence, and it was because of that. But I was never completely thrashed or knifed or shot or anything like that. I mean, they have some crimes. They know of some crimes that are outright deaths. I didn't know that there was such a thing as a mulatto axe murders in Texas and Louisiana. Until today, I just happened to see one of the older videos. And then apparently in Atlanta, there's a case of murders by someone called the Atlanta Ripper, still unsolved. Somebody survived the attempt, and they did not describe it as a white supremacist. These murders were specifically mulatto women, as they referred to them at the time, specifically. Nobody unmixed white or black was being killed in these murders. It was specifically mulatto women. One lady survived it, got stabbed in the back, but she was able to escape. All I'm going to say is it wasn't a white dude doing it. And that's sad, but it wasn't a white dude doing it. It tells you something. Who was it? So there are cases in which we have been targeted, deadly so, by our own. This does exist. Most of our own would never do something like this, you see. But the point I'm making is that the privilege is vastly offset. Whatever we want, it doesn't even count as being called a privilege. It doesn't meet the definition of privilege, and it is offset by too much of a cost. But in order to explain this, you get shouted down. That means we're not discussing it effectively because one has listened to the other one's side. I know, because I was raised up to believe and listen and don't doubt what they're saying. And I'm glad I did not. I'm glad I listened when they would talk about some of the things they went through. When my own kind on the opposite end of the spectrum would talk about things they went to, I listened. And you know what? Most of them weren't lying. By the same token, when I would describe what the costs were for the perception of something called a light skin privilege, I would be told to fuck the shuck up. I had it easy. Come to find out, nope, nobody did. The community doesn't go easy. Whatever they can make, whatever the reason is that they can be hard on you, we will do that to each other. And if you're in the middle of the spectrum, then your ear size becomes, it's going to be something. You could have a double chin. And I don't mean because you're fat. You could just have that cleft chin. You got a butt chin. Nigga chin look like a booty, bro. Every time that dude look at me, he mooning me. That's what happens. Now, sometimes it's jokes, like I said, and other times it ain't jokes. The point is, we don't take it easy on anybody among us. We look for reasons to not give someone even a neutral time. That means we're not discussing it. That means we're not discussing it effectively. We're discussing it, but not effectively. So, should we discuss it? Yeah, sure. We just got to change the way we do it. And one of the ways is very basic. Listen and talk, taking turns, one at a time. You don't have to automatically believe or disbelieve something somebody says. But don't make the worst assumptions, and be willing to hear each other out and talk one at a time. Arabs and niggas don't do that very well, and most people don't, especially uneducated people. No, they don't listen. And that's why formal debates are very important. You take turns. Now, regarding that, and then I'm going to leave, there are some of you guys who are on my side of the issue as far as the manosphere. There are dudes there are red pill guys who may be right on their platform as far as I can tell, but they don't know how to debate someone else. You want to back them into a corner and ask them what you think is a yes or no question, and it's actually not a yes or no question. So when they don't give you a yes or no answer, you want to keep cutting them off. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. It ain't a yes or no question. The answer is not yes or no. That's not the way it works, nigga. And just because you and I might agree on issues doesn't mean I'm going to give you a pass on that. Let them answer the question, and you can use that to hang them with if it's that kind of answer. If they're inconsistent, you can catch them in that. But no. You want to sit up and say, I'm not generalizing, but then you want to try to back someone else into a corner to generalize so you can catch them on generalization. No, see, that's not the way that works. And there are people who are wrong about something, but they actually don't know they're wrong. You don't have to be hostile. They really don't know they're wrong. If they knew, they'd change their mind. They just need the evidence. This really does happen a lot more than what we think. These are some of the ways we can begin to discuss it more effectively. Because in reality, like I said, I've already sat back and watched it. I just can't explain to you the proof that I have in this one recording. But what you will find is that we have a common enemy. You will find that. But in order to see it for yourself, you're going to have to discuss it in this effective manner. And then you'll see it. And don't come back and say, hey, Black, you were right. No, you don't have to do that. You can simply, all you got to do is say, wait, this method of discussion and actual discussion works better. And we learn something. And let's teach this to our kids. Because, see, the inability to listen and hear someone out without interrupting is passed down from generation to generation. That one is subconscious. But when you bring it to the consciousness of someone, unfortunately, a lot of people say, so, and then their kids learn this. And then another generation can't discuss it effectively. And the only way to settle some disputes is going to be with fist. If you really want to know the truth, most adults don't get violent without them interrupting each other first. That is the first sign. That's when it gets dangerous. They keep interrupting. Then they start misunderstanding and interrupting, and neither one can learn anything, but they can't agree, so they're just going to have to fight it out. That's nigga business. And I'm tired of it. Arabs do the same thing, and these people do fight each other. You will see two adults, usually you don't, but you will hear cases of two adults who are related to each other out in these streets. Why? Because they can't stop interrupting each other. There's a case in England right now, Pakistani family. A family got to argue and one stabbed everybody else. He's now going to go to prison for life. Why? Because first they argued, then they began to interrupt. Everyone was shouting. No one would listen. One just had enough, pulled out a knife, stab, 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 stab. Cop showed up. He was covered in blood. And they were dead. It started with them interrupting. You see, they don't have to always agree. They could have come to some kind of, at least an agreement later on if they could hear each other out, but they couldn't do it. They can't listen. And they can't take turns talking. So you just got to solve it with violence. And now nobody gets it. At least none of them. Hope this has been a benefit. Thanks for listening. Blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man. Sign a blackout. Assalamu alaikum and black male power just because Master Charlie don't like it.